today I'm here with Mike and Mom. We are talking about, is hyperinflation coming?
Dun, dun.
Wow.
Now you don't have to put a sound effect in.
Thanks. All right, so today we're talking about, is hyperinflation coming, and our opinion on that and what you should do about it. Take it away, dear. What does hyperinflation mean?
Oh, you're sending it to me. Actually, hyperinflation is, well, inflation is when you have a value, the value of the money goes down because of something that's happening in the economy.
Okay.
And so typically I think a lot of people don't realize that the value of money is based on the value of all the goods and services in the country.
Okay.
So let's say on a small scale, you have like $1,000 and you're your own country. And you have $1,000 that represents all of the value of all the goods and services that you have. And so if you decide, oh, I really want to have more money, so I'm going to print more money. I'm going to have $2,000 now, but you still have the same amount of goods and services. That means that the money is only worth half of what it was worth yesterday, because how much it would buy of your goods and services is less per dollar. So on a large scale, that's what inflation is.
So basically hyperinflation happens when?
Hyperinflation is when that gets really out of control. So like if the government prints a small amount of extra money for something, they usually use that for their own purposes, and it kind of reduces the value of all the money that you have at home.
But why is the government printing more money?
Because they want to give people things that they can't afford to give people. So they just decide
the government doesn't have the money to pay for it, so they print more money, but that makes the money worth less.
And nowadays they just add zeros to numbers in a computer. They don't even print
and
it.
People like them more.
Yeah.
Because they're given the money. So they
promise
a lot.
They promise to give you more things, and then they can't really afford the more things, which is why we have a deficit. Our country's been spending more than we make every year for a long time. And because of that, it causes the money that you have to have less and less value. That's why, years and years ago, a brand new car was $600, and now a brand new car is $60,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's because the value of the money keeps decreasing because we just keep printing more of it for things.
So the definition of hyperinflation is prices going up 50% or more in a month. And it is created by the government printing more money.
And also by supply shortages, where people still buy the same amount of stuff or more, and stuff is less available. So those two things cause that. Now, I'm not a total expert in inflation. I'm going to say that right up front.
Yeah.
But now hyperinflation is, like Tar said, prices increasing 50% or more in a month. And that typically is where that's mostly happened in countries where a government is printing a lot of money for their own use, oftentimes for promises to people. And then they end up continuing to have that problem worse and worse and printing more and more. And the greater the value decreases, the more the value decreases, the greater the problem.
So we keep getting comment, oh, the United States is never going to turn into Venezuela. You're just being stupid. This woman doesn't know what she's talking about. She's so stupid.
Well,
okay.
Hopefully that's true. The thing is,
Thanks.
Right now, as we record this, regular inflation is at a rate that's somewhere around 4 or 5%.
Yep.
So that's not considered to be really horrible, but
that's not good either.
It's not good. Really,
2% is
2% is what they think is good. Because if it's not growing at all, that just has other things. But anyway, just a small amount of that is considered to be good. But 5% is considered to be sort of moving in the dangerous direction. And if it gets to double digits, then it's considered to be urgent. And then beyond that, it just gets worse and worse. So right now, we're at around 4 to 5%.
In October of 2021.
But then there's a lot of discussion about borrowing massive amount of money to spend on a whole lot of things. And we're basically wanting to borrow money because we want to spend more than we have. So this is kind of like you and your personal finances. If you make $50,000 a year, but you want to spend $75,000 a year, and every year you just keep spending $75,000, you're going to have a problem unless your income goes up.
So Mom has a really good example of this.
I do. Well, I have two examples. The kids, when they were younger, they'd want to buy something, and I'd say, "No, I don't have the money for it," and so they would say, "Well, just write a check." They didn't understand I had to have money in the bank to cover what I was going to write on that check. It's kind of like printing the money, and you don't have the gold or whatever it is you need to cover that.
Don't have anything to back the money.
Yeah.
It's not there.
It's just paper they're printing.
So when there's twice as much money, if you like in the old days, like in the Depression, Grandma would keep money in a mattress or in a jar. If you keep cash in a jar, nowadays, because the money is based on how much of the economy it will buy, when they make a whole lot more money, even the money you have in the jar is becoming less
not
valuable.
worth anything.
So it's like a hidden tax, really.
Yeah. And so we get upset with the government because of what they're doing with their money and stuff. But look at yourself. People, the average person on their personal finances are writing those checks and not having money to go.
Not
and
our
they're
viewers
doing,
because they listen to us.
That's true. But credit cards is the exact same thing. You take a credit card out and you don't have any money to cover that, to be able to pay for that at the end of the month or whatever. You're doing the exact same thing by taking a credit card. How many of us, well, not me, but I mean, how many people are in debt up to their eyeballs? They're doing the exact same thing the government. So you can't get mad at the government. You've got to look at yourself too. And so it's this whole thing. You combine the government doing this and you doing it. It's just
Perfect firestorm.
exactly.
Well, and for people, and for people doing it, there's a certain psychology about money that's just not legitimate. Like, rescue your money that's trapped in your home by getting a home equity loan, because then you can you can release that money from your house that's kept there in bondage, and then you can use it for a vacation or to do something that you think is valuable now. So just the thinking that your money is not available to you because it's stuck in the house, oh my goodness, that you have to borrow money to get it out of your house. No, what you're actually doing is you're stealing from yourself in the future. So the idea then is that your money is trapped somewhere and it's your money and how terrible it is, and these people are going to free you from that problem. The problem is you're stealing from yourself in the future, because what people don't realize is they think, I have the right to have toys, I have the right to take my kids on vacation because I want to, and psychologically I think somehow they're not going to love me as much if I don't take them on vacation when they're young and I can't afford to do it.
And you're worth it.
You're worth it. And the problem with all that is it's actually debt. You're taking money from yourself in the future that you don't actually have. And then in the future, you'll say, I can't believe that all these people are holding me responsible for all this debt. So the thing is, you end up in a much better place if you pay off the house and then use the money that you get. Because when you have debt, you're choosing to pay 25% more for everything, and sometimes more.
Yeah.
So if you look at something, you say, man, I don't want to spend $20,000 on that car. I have to do the math in my head. I don't want to spend, and $20,000 would be a cheap car these days. I don't want to spend $20,000 on that car. I'd rather spend $25,000 on that car. That's what you're saying when you say, I'm going to free my equity out of the house. Well, in the same way, the government is spending ahead of itself. And if we could just get to a point where we're only spending the money we're taking in each year, that would be much better, because the debt alone is $1 billion a day in the United States, is the interest alone on the debt. So that's money that we all have to pay out of taxes that's not even providing any services at all.
So currently in the United States, each individual person, child, everybody owes $90,000. And they haven't passed the new spending bill that they're planning on doing more. So that will probably double. So how would you like it if somebody came to your door and said, here, you owe the government $90,000 because that's your portion? You would never be able to pay it. That's why it's so ridiculous. So do we think hyperinflation is coming? Yes. I No, it is coming.
Well, it's almost already here with that kind of debt. And
Well,
that type of
inflation
thing
is
is really,
inflation
Yeah.
is here, and it's kind of like a person who's been spending badly and has an opportunity to turn it around. And now we have to decide, are we going to turn it around? Because the thing is, I think it's yes if we keep spending the way that we're spending. If
Yeah.
we keep saying, well, we need to borrow money so that we can pay people for all sorts of things that they want,
Yeah.
instead of saying, what things do we not need that we're spending on, and how can we get that within a reasonable amount of budget?
So, is hyperinflation coming? Yes, I think it is. The Bible's very specific that it's going to cost a day's wages to buy a loaf of bread. So, it's going to happen. Now, when is it going to happen? We don't know. Now, has it happened in the past? Yes. We've had the Great Depression. We've had the Civil War. We have had several wars where it maybe wasn't hyperinflation, but it was
Civil War was hyperinflation.
really bad inflation. And Mom has an example.
yeah. One example, I forget, it was like right before the 1900s or right after the first of the 1900s. And they had to work, people had to work 6 hours to buy 1 dozen eggs. Now, I want you to let that sink in. It's happened in the past. The Bible's not off whack by saying that you're going to have to work a whole day for a loaf of bread. They had to work 6 hours to get enough money to buy 1 dozen eggs. I mean, really, you think about that. We wonder why they used to send their kids out to work during those time periods, and how horrible that is. Now, I don't believe in child labor necessarily, but they had to do that to survive. If you've got 8 kids in the family and you have to work 6 hours to get 1 dozen eggs, everybody had to work. And they had to work long, hard hours, and they had to work 7 days a week. And that was before we just thought that was so terrible, but that's why they had to do that, because they had hyperinflation.
Well, they didn't want to die. They
Yeah.
just didn't want to die.
Yeah, they just had to work that much just to get enough food to keep themselves barely alive. So I want you to really let that sink in. We're headed towards a place where we may have to start working 6 hours to buy 1 dozen eggs. We, in our minds, our American minds and stuff, we can't even wrap our heads around that. But it's happened in America in the past. And the Bible says it's going to happen in the future. So why in the world would you think it would never happen to you?
Yeah.
So you need to start now. That's
Well-
why we're telling you this stuff
So
now.
this is why we're doing all the videos on stockpiling and that kind of thing. It is not to scare you. It's not to throw fear into you. It is just to help you get prepared. And you have to keep perspective.
Yeah.
You have to keep this in perspective. Right now,
You can't bury your head in the sand.
no, right now things aren't bad. Right now you can still go to the grocery store and buy stuff. As a matter of fact, I was going to do a video on food shortages, and I still might. But I went to the grocery store to film the food shortages, and there was none. Now, next week there might be. But right now, I can go buy all the ramen noodles I want. I can go get all the, and I know there's lots of people who say that their grocery stores don't have things on the shelves. I totally get that. But you can still find food on the shelves. And you have to keep it in that perspective.
Well, and there's something else that what we're saying is, if you think back to those of you who are old enough to remember Grandma from the Depression, they used to say, a penny saved is a penny earned, save for a rainy day. So when things are great, you save your money. And then when things aren't so great, you have money available. And those thoughts actually had a great amount of validity. And so
you're using fancy words now.
So what we're saying is, even if it gets really bad, there are things you can do to prepare yourself so that it doesn't hit you in that way. I mean, everyone would suffer if it got that bad, but you might suffer less if you're prepared.
You can be prepared.
And the idea isn't saving a whole bunch of stuff and just hoarding a massive amount of things. The idea is to be smart every day with your money so that you're not creating this problem for yourself. Because you can't control what everyone is asking the government to do and what the government is doing. But you can control your own spending situation.
Learn skills too. Learn how to control everyday things. We were talking in a video the other day about that. You need to start practicing. Turn your furnace down in the winter, or your air, whichever, and start getting used to not having to have it so hot and so warm and that type of thing. But I heard a story last night that talks about what Michael's talking about. Don't panic. If you're a Christian, God's going to take care of you.
He's promised he's going to take care of you.
He's promised, but he also expects you to do part of it. He's given you the knowledge. He's given you the ability to do part of it. He doesn't want, I saw this last night. You guys are just going to die. It wasn't in the Bible. But it's a perfect example of this. It was on a Hallmark movie. And a lot of you maybe have even seen it before. And in this Hallmark movie, this angel person or whatever was talking to the main character. And the angel gal was telling a story. And I thought, this is a perfect story for what we're talking about today. That we need to do stuff ourselves, and start doing. We're giving you advice on doing that. And you need to start doing. Because this story was about this man was caught in a snowstorm. And so here comes another farmer in a sleigh, and he says, "Can I help you?" And the man says, "No, I prayed to God, and God's going to save me." And the farmer said, "Are you sure?" And he said, "No, God's going to rescue me, so you don't need to help me." So the farmer went away. Farmer came back by, and here stands the man, waist high in snow, and the farmer says, "You sure you don't want me to give you a ride in my sleigh?" Farmer said, and the guy said, "No, I prayed, and I'm going to have faith, and I'm going to believe God's going to take care of me." So a few hours later, the guy's up to his neck. The farmer comes by and said, "Let me help you." And the guy said, "No, that would not be trusting in God. I'm going to have faith." The man ends up dying in the snowstorm, and he gets to heaven, and he asks God, he said, "Why didn't you save me?" And God said, "Well, I sent somebody by 3 times, and you didn't bother to get in the sleigh." And that's what I feel like we're trying to do. We have
But a lot of
faith.
times people are saying the government is going to rescue me.
Yeah, somebody else.
Somebody else.
Somebody else.
Or the other thing is when you drive on the highway and somebody's broken down and you say, "Can I give you a ride? Can I help you with that?" And they said, "No, I've got my phone. I'll call somebody."
Yeah.
And it's fine that you call somebody, but not being able to do it yourself.
And I've seen another thing that's happening in people making comments is that I will just go to the food bank. Now, there's nothing wrong with using a food bank.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry, guys. Well, I'm trying to warn you is what I'm doing. There are times in your life you may need to use a food bank. Really, there are people, and they were developed for certain times for people that really need this. But I have had so many people say, "I'm not going to worry about it because if anything happens, I can just go to my food bank." You do not realize, first of all, nobody's going to have any food to donate to a food bank. There isn't. You're not going to have enough yourself to donate. I mean, nobody's going to have food to donate to a food bank.
If things get as bad as they could.
Yeah. And then on top of that, how many other people are going to be going to this food bank? Everybody's going to be going to the food bank. So they've got 4 cans of pork and beans at the food bank, and they've got 1,000 people standing in line. You've got to think this stuff through. Stop always thinking, "Well, I'll just count on somebody else. I'll just count." Now, we do say you need to trust God and have faith and count on Him to a point that He still wants you not to get in debt. He still wants you to learn to control your spending. He wants you to maybe prepare a little bit and
Learn how to cook.
Have more than 1 week's worth of groceries in the house. Instead of taking your money to go on vacation or go out to eat, take that extra money, even if it's $5, and go buy a little bit extra food.
Or even not that, you may have to turn your heat down.
Or learn different habits. Change your life habits.
But the point I was making is that if you are prepared, you're not in debt, you have supplies for a short to medium term emergency or unexpected thing, you can flex your pantry and save money and only buy things when they're on sale. Those things are all really good things. And the other thing is, if everything does completely get out of control, you're not going to be able to protect yourself from that by just having a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But in that case, it's also helpful to learn how to do things and
Yeah.
know how to take care of things yourself. It's nice for us to be able to call a plumber or an electrician to come do something at our house, or somebody to mow the grass, whatever. We don't do the mow the grass part, but anyway, it's nice to have somebody to be able to do that. But if you don't know how to do that, that's the problem. Like some of the stuff that, one of the things with the hyperinflation is if you don't know how to do anything and you have to buy everything, it's going to be a disaster for you if that happens.
You need to be able to barter skills.
But if people have skills and they can use those things, or a lot of people are just getting farther and farther away from being able to produce food. And so you have to rely on someone else to do that for you. So just having those kinds of skills and being able to adapt will make you have less of a catastrophe if something bad were to happen.
And another thing is start habits now. You don't want to start good habits when you're in crisis situation. Like Tara said with the heat, learn not to waste your water. Learn not to waste your electricity and things like that. Learn not to waste your food. You know?
Excuse me, I need to go turn off the fireplace, please.
But learn to use those leftovers. Learn how to stretch your food. These are all habits. Learn when you're brushing your teeth not to leave the water running the whole time you're brushing your teeth. Turn it off. When you're washing dishes, don't leave the water running. And rinsing the dishes, along with skills like Mike was saying, learn how to wash dishes by hand, because I have shown over and over again, by turning your water off when you're rinsing the dishes, it uses less water than using a dishwasher, and those times you have got to start learning these things and putting them, not just learning them, putting them in place. And, what could I do to not use my air conditioner in the summer? You can use a fan. It costs much less to use a fan.
You might have to get a piece of paper and just
fan yourself. You may have to splash water on you several times during the day. Learn how to do these and just do them automatic. I know. I was thinking of one this morning. This is the way my life is. I've gotten so used to doing these habits that it's just automatic with me now. And that's the way you need to be. But I was driving down a hill going home, and it was a really steep hill, and I was having to put my brakes on almost all the way down this hill. There's another route I took that I didn't have to use my brakes near as much. In my mind, even though this other route was maybe a block or 2 blocks a little bit longer, I started taking that route because I'm not going to wear the brakes out of my car. I can't afford the brakes. I just automatically start doing things. I pull my car into a parking space. If I can pull it forward right away to park, that uses my transmission on my car one less time of having to back up and then go forward again. You see what I mean? These are little habits that I just have done for years and years and years. And you may not be able to do all those things, but start 2 or 3 a week, something new.
Well, and most Americans don't need to do the level of stuff that Jill is talking about, where it's such a tiny thing, because most Americans have something much larger that's a major waste. And for me personally, when I met Tara, I was beginning to get into the regular American thing where I had gotten the credit card, I maxed it out. I thought, oh no, this is a catastrophe. I'm going to get another credit card so I can transfer the balance and save some money. And then I maxed it out too. And at the time I was working at a grocery store and my income was really, really small. And I was really having a hard time just paying off that minimum amount. And that was the beginning of a potential problem for me. Now, when I met Tara, I already knew in my heart something's wrong here and I'm not sure how to fix it. Most people will just kind of borrow and see how much they can get away with each month, and if I do the minimum payments and if the interest, and that's not a sustainable model. You will have catastrophe if that's the way you run your life. But Tara said when we first got married, I think we need to stop spending money on these things. And there were some things that I was thinking, I really don't want to give that up. But in my heart, I know this is a disaster path that I'm kind of thinking about going down. And over the years, we got to realize we just can't buy everything we want in the moment. And at first that was a little hard, but then pretty soon I got to thinking, I don't really miss that stuff. Mm-hmm. And now we actually are able to spend more money. We have more money to spend. And I just think, Tara says, what do you want for Christmas? Like, I don't know. Nothing really is burning on my mind to have it. And the other day I was talking to a guy I know, and he was saying his biggest challenge is that he just sees a new something, and even though he has a bunch of other things, he just wants to buy it because it looks so amazing.
No, we're talking snowmobiles, four-wheelers.
Yeah.
Not little
big
things.
And so what I realized at the time is I don't have that in me anymore. It's weird that practicing it for a little while, I just realized that those things I was trying to spend money on, as soon as I would get them, then the excitement was over and I had to go get a different thing. And I think that's the trap that most Americans are in. So if you can think of those things, that's really, really helpful. And then on a more medium scale between there and where Jill was talking about, like, you may not need to right now put your heater on 50, but if your heater's on 78, we keep ours on 68 around. We've kept it lower at times and slightly higher at times. But the thing is, you could just do some of those things that are just less wasteful habits. There are a lot of things that if you can just get in a mindset that's a little bit different, then you can get yourself into a better situation.
If you need to go run an errand, don't run one errand. Try to accumulate so that you can go to 3 places and use the gas for going to like 3 or 4 places instead of coming home and then going again and coming home and going again, and those types of things.
And that really adds up for people,
does.
Like middle class people in cities that love to just run to the store 20 times a day.
I forgot this. I'll just run and get it. No, I figure out how to make do not having it, or I just don't fix that meal or whatever until the next day when I know I'm going to be going to the grocery store anyway. Those are little types of things, that you need to start rethinking and getting used to doing that now, because then when it comes, it won't be so hard. As a matter of fact, I didn't know it, but there was some kind of a recession, I guess, in the 1970s and one in the 1990s. I totally missed it. I didn't even know that. I hear about them now. And I thought, well, I don't remember going through that at all, because my life at that time, I was just doing these things, had already put them into practice, and it didn't even faze me when that stuff happened. I didn't even know it was happening because I was being so careful and I was so used to doing it. And so that doesn't mean we won't be fazed at all if it gets really bad, but it won't be near as stressful.
Actually, one thing about that's kind of interesting too is right now it's really not a problem when you hear things are really bad, but people are still buying optional things. Mm-hmm. When you really have to struggle because you can't buy basic food. I mean, I'm not talking about eating out food. I'm talking about eggs and rice and cereal and stuff like that. That's when the problem is really a catastrophe. But right now, we've had so many things for so long that people see it as a crisis that they can only buy one snowmobile this year. Or only one, whatever. Or they can't buy the new car even though they had to get the old car fixed, but they'd rather buy a new car and they're angry about that. And you can sort of see some pressure on it because when people run into a financial problem, they think, how can I save on food? Or how can I cut the important things or get someone else to pay for the important things, because then I can spend more money on the things I really want to spend it on. And that's kind of the beginning of seeing that you have a problem. What Jill was talking about, and kind of what I was talking about before, is if you can train yourself to realize those things only provide you joy while you're thinking about getting them and when you first get them, and then you want to buy more, the optional things, the toys. And I mean, coffees and lattes, all those things are toys in the sense that it's a quick hit of adrenaline, or not adrenaline, it's a quick hit of happy hormone when you go get your fancy coffee, and then after you drink it, the hit is gone. But the weight's going to be there and the money is gone. And so if you can train yourself to put less value on those things that are temporary, then you will get yourself in a much better financial situation now. But the other thing is, if disaster happens, it's mostly going to affect the things that you have to buy. And if you're accustomed to buying all this amazing, wonderful, crazy stuff that you really don't even like that much, if you really think about it, you're going to feel devastated if you can't buy those things. But if you're used to spending money on the important things and then thinking of the optional things as a fun thing now and then.
A special treat.
It won't be a catastrophe for you if suddenly you can't buy a lot of stuff.
What it's like is being on drugs.
It
or
is.
on alcohol.
It's totally like that.
And that's what this is. You're addicted to the spending and buying this stuff. And so if you can't have it anymore real quick, you're gonna have withdrawals like you can't imagine. It's just like being on drugs. So you need to get off those drugs first, before this happens, and do it a little bit easier way of having the withdrawals than doing real fast.
I think that's brilliant. And I can say I recognize...
Oh, he said I'm brilliant.
I've said that you feel awful and terrible and you hate yourself. Well, that's kind of the way that spending is operating. As soon as you get what you think you want, suddenly its value, its excitement in your life is less.
And you know what? You're hurting yourself and
Yeah.
you're hurting your family. It's just like drugs. You hurt yourself and you hurt your family by doing this physically, emotionally, spiritually, every way. And I just don't think we're taking it serious enough, the spending of money being out of control. How devastating it is to ourselves and our families and our country and the world, period. Everybody's wanting to do the green thing and, we're going to save the world. You have got to start with this type of thing before you're going to save anything. Part of the world not being saved is we're just buying so much stuff and tossing so much stuff. I've never recycled. You guys heard me this a million times. I have a recycling thing, and I'm thinking, what am I supposed to do with this? I can't even get my trash can half filled, let alone a recycling bin, because I don't have anything to recycle. And that's part because I've controlled my spending and buying things. And I saw a YouTuber the other day. She's very big into knitting her own face cloth things to save, instead of buying the makeup remover pad. She's making all of those, which that's fine. But then she turns around and she has like this $250, $300 coffee maker that has these plastic little pods you have to put in.
And throw them away. And
It's
recycling is still throwing them away.
She's making herself feel good by knitting or crocheting the makeup things so she can go not feel guilty about doing that. You can't substitute things like that and your addiction for one thing for another. You've got to look at it like that and try to get control. And it won't happen really fast. You can't do this fast. That's why we're trying to get you to start now. It's going to take time to wean yourself off of this stuff. You've got to do a little bit at a time, or else you'll just go back even worse than you were before.
Well, actually, if you think about what are one or two things in my life that I can try to change that habit that are the biggest problem for me. And you might not want to give up your biggest problem, but that's probably where you should start. The other thing is what Jill was talking about the environment and all that, and depending on how you feel about all those things, if you can't maintain your own situation, how do you think you are going to help change a bigger situation like that? And another thing I was going to make a point about the whole hyperinflation thing is, if you can't control, you can do your part to try to influence things, but you can't really control what everyone else is spending and what the government is going to spend and all that. You personally don't have a whole lot of control over that, except, how you vote and stuff like that. So what you can control is your own situation and kind of really lessen the impact of other people's bad decisions on you. And that's where we're talking about getting your spending under control, getting the right perspective about spending, learning how to do things yourself, being prepared for short and medium term emergencies. Those things are all helping you to not have to suffer if everyone else is driving the train off the cliff.
Did you have something to say?
No. I don't.
So, and the other thing is, I wouldn't worry at all about, I would be concerned about hyperinflation, but I wouldn't really worry. If you spend all your time worrying about that, you can't change that.
No.
So instead, spend your time doing reasonable and prudent, practical things So put yourself in the best possible
Yeah.
situation.
If hyperinflation happens, there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Well, and if hyperinflation happens,
You know.
and let's say you have no real need to spend any money at all, then it's totally irrelevant to you. It's only relevant to the degree that you have to spend money. And that's on having, typically, the important things for money are housing, food, medical care, but that's really gotten blown out of proportion in our country. And those kinds of things. Those are the most important things, the things that you really need to spend money on. Pretty much everything else you could do.
Yeah, but you don't have to spend as much money on it. Is the
No,
thing.
what I'm saying is
So,
other things, if you want those things, you have
Yeah.
to spend money on it. But really, almost everything else, you can completely not spend anything and you'll still be all right.
yes.
Yeah.
So is hyperinflation coming? Yes, I think it is. The way the government is just passing spending bills and all this, I mean,
For money that we don't have.
it's inevitable that it's going to happen. Now, when is it going to happen? I don't know, but you should get yourself prepared anyway, just in case it happens.
Get rid of the panic and fear and do something practical.
Yeah.
So maybe
Yep.
everyone in the country and the government should all be on a 12-step program together.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. Guys, watch your things to stock up on if hyperinflation hits. These are basic things, guys, that will go up right away. Also, we have a free prepper cookbook for you guys in the description below at livingonadime.com. It's free if you use the coupon code. We will see you guys next time. Visit us at livingonadime.com. Do I want to what?
Oh, never mind.
Do we even know what we're talking about? I am kind of droopy today, aren't I? No, Mike's not going to be able to concentrate the whole time. I'm sorry.
I'm going to be a drinking woman.